I'm Nima Rajan. A virtual tribute will be held today, marking the 3rd anniversary of Saskatchewan's Humboldt Broncos bus crash. 16 people died and 13 were injured when a semi-trailer ran a stop sign and drove into the path of the junior hockey team's bus near Tisdale on April 6, 2018. The service from St. Augustine Catholic Church will be live-streamed on the City of Humboldt's Facebook page and will involve ringing church bells and a moment of silence at the time that the bus crashed. There were over 6,200 new confirmed COVID-19 cases reported from across the country Monday, bringing the total number of cases reported since March of last year to more than 1,014,000. The number of current active cases in Canada is more than 58,000. Hotspots in the country continue to be Ontario, with nearly 3,000 new cases on Monday, and Quebec with over 1,200. British Columbia and Alberta each reported almost 900 new cases. Authorities in several provinces are expressing concern that the recent rise in COVID-19 cases and virus variants is putting renewed strain on an already stressed healthcare system. Ontario recorded a 4th straight day of about 3,000 new cases, and yesterday set a new all-time high for the number of patients in intensive care. Many of those cases are in the Greater Toronto area, prompting hospitals to transfer 88 patients to other regions to help address capacity issues. Quebec's health minister also cited growing patient loads in hospitals. Well, as parts of Canada have been logging skyrocketing COVID-19 cases, many are possibly linked to variants of concern. While most variant cases in the country have stemmed from the B.1.1.7 variety first detected in the United Kingdom, troubling outbreaks of the P.1 variant, which was first identified in Brazil, are starting to emerge with more frequency. Among those dealing with outbreaks are the Vancouver Canucks NHL team and clusters of cases detected in Alberta at PTW Energy Services, where cases of the Brazilian variant have been linked to its employees. Gig workers and labor experts are calling on the federal government to modernize Canada's employment insurance program to ensure a social safety net is available for unsteady and temporary workers too. They say the COVID-19 pandemic has exposed deficiencies in the 8-decade-long program, and revisions are needed to account for the up and down nature of gig work. They're hoping for changes to EI in the April 19th federal budget. Statistics Canada says the country's gig economy comprised 1.7 million workers in 2016. A federal government committee will spend a 3rd day reviewing the proposed $26 billion purchase of Shaw Communications by Rogers Communications. The deal, announced on March 15th, needs regulatory approval to go forward. Rogers directly competes in some markets with Shaw's Freedom Mobile, which is Canada's 4th largest wireless carrier. The Commons Industry, Science and Technology Committee is expected to hear today from a couple of academic experts who study the Canadian telecommunications industry. Experts say Canada is likely to benefit from the U.S. government's decision to campaign for a global minimum on corporate tax rates. This comes after a speech by U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, in which she expressed her support for the measure. In the speech outlining the economic priorities of President Joe Biden for the United States, Ms. Yellen repeatedly emphasized the need for collaboration to resolve global problems. New York-based tax expert Paul Saraganian said governments in Canada, the U.S. and Europe and elsewhere will all benefit if they can work together on reforms to the global tax system. Canada's 2 biggest railways have started off the year with continuing record shipments of Western Canadian grain. CN Rail says it moved 8.2 million tons of grain in the first quarter, despite extreme temperatures in February breaking the previous record of 7 million tons in 2017. It says it has moved 22.7 million tons of Canadian grain so far in the 2020-21 crop year, which is up 19% from the record 19.1 million tons moved 2 years earlier. CP Rail says its first quarter grain shipments were up 12.6% over the previous year to 6.62 million tons. A man from Alberta has died after he and another skier were caught in an avalanche in Banff National Park. Parks Canada says the pair were on the northeast face of Hato Peak in Lake Louise area yesterday when the avalanche was triggered. Avalanche Canada says on its website that the skier who died was carried 600 meters through extreme terrain. It says the survivor was able to descend and dig out his partner, but he did not survive. Former TV show host SHIRLEY has passed away in St. John's, Newfoundland. Ms. NEWHOOK was best known for her current affairs show Coffee Break on CBC television. The show ran for 17 years and included appearances from notable figures like Margaret Trudeau and Vera Lynn. All right, up next, we discuss Ontario's recent province-wide lockdown and how it impacts the province's hotspot regions that were already under gray zone restrictions. An interview with the Mayor of Mississauga, Mayor Bonnie Crombie, coming up next. Stay with us, everyone. We'll be right back. This past weekend, the Ontario government pulled the emergency brake in their pandemic restrictions plan and placed the province under lockdown in response to surging COVID-19 infections and intensive care admissions that are being driven by rising rates of the more deadly variants of concern. However, considering that Ontario's hotspots, the Toronto and Peel region, have been under a grey lockdown zone for over 4 months, some officials are calling for a change in strategy. Meanwhile, it was announced yesterday that all schools in the Peel region were ordered to close and operate online. Now, the top medical officers for Peel, Toronto, and Ottawa are calling for a stay-at-home order in those regions to further protect residents. Well, to give us her perspective and reaction to recent restrictions and school closures, we are joined by the Mayor of Mississauga, Mayor Bonnie Crombie. Welcome to Forum Daily, ma'am.
Thank you for having me today.
Now, let's start with the most recent announcement of school closures in the Peel region. It seemed a little last minute for parents, but was this expected by officials, and was this the right move?
Well, we have been experiencing a surge in our cases. We are now averaging 500 cases each and every day in the region of Peel, and certainly Dr. Lowe has been talking about school closures. We've always said schools would be the last to close and the first to open, but we looked at the conditions in our community, which were not only the rising case counts, but they were also the situation in our hospitals, which are seeing 15 to 22 new cases each and every day. Let me go through some of the numbers for you. The numbers have been doubling every 10 days in the hospital. We have 83 patients that are COVID positive, including a number in addition who have COVID-related illness that continues. 20 in the ICU at Trillium Health Partners in Mississauga, and equal to that at William Osler in Brampton. So you can see our hospitals now are surging as well. They're at 100% capacity, and they are now transferring patients once again to other regions such as Niagara, Kingston, and Ottawa. In fact, I will share with you that there are more COVID cases in William Osler Hospital than there are in the Vaughan Cortellucci COVID hospital. So you can see the situation became quite dire. We are looking at what additional measures may be put in place, which may be expanding the definition of non-essentials to close more businesses. And of course, the mayors have been petitioning the province to increase the flow of the supply of vaccine to the hotspots such as Peel region. And in addition, to move forward those workers, those essential and more vulnerable workers who are in our manufacturing and our warehousing, etc., our teachers, in fact, as well, transit workers who cannot work from home, and they are to be vaccinated in phase 2, but we are suggesting that they be moved up. They be moved up. I don't see us changing the course, the direction of the upwardly trending numbers until we could address the source. And the source is largely in these large employment places, such as the Amazons, where we saw 900 cases, the Canada Post, etc. Let's get those workers in vulnerable settings and our other essential workers vaccinated.
Now, you're mentioning vaccine priorities for frontline workers and hard-hit communities. We know Ontario's second phase does involve vaccinations for essential workers, but what is missing here in the second phase? And do you think it's been planned accurately and fairly?
Well, in retrospect, perhaps not, but our knowledge of this virus and how to solve it keeps evolving at the same time. So with respect to vaccinations, yes, phase 2, anyone who couldn't work from home would be vaccinated. But if we look at the case of teachers, their number would be called in June, and of course they'll be off for the summer, so that does us no good. We need to get the teachers vaccinated, and now's the time to do it, of course, because they'll be home for the next 2 weeks with online classes. classes, let's get those teachers in. I will say that the largest issue has been the stable supply of the vaccine. And the hardest hit regions like Peel were not getting an adequate supply. We weren't getting a supply commensurate with our population, let alone with our case count numbers. If we reflect 20% of the cases in Ontario, then of course we should be getting 20% of the vaccine. We won't solve this virus until we can change it, get control of it in the hot spots like Peel.
All right, Mayor Crombie, we've got about 30 seconds left, but some doctors are recommending a stay-at-home order. Do you think this is a next step for officials to consider?
So what we do know is those stay-at-home orders only are effective. They only work effectively if they're right across the GTHA. And to have a stay-at-home order in Peel or Toronto doesn't work.
All right, stay tuned for top headlines from across the country coming up next as BC faces a rise in new variant cases. That and more national news coming up after the break, so stay tuned, everyone. We'll be right back. Cases of a COVID-19 variant associated with Brazil have multiplied exponentially in BC, with 737 infections of the strain that is believed to be more contagious than two others. The variant associated with the United Kingdom now represents 2,771 cases, while 51 cases of the one linked to South Africa have been diagnosed, among a total of 3,559 cases in the province. Health Minister Adrian Dix says he expects variants of concern to eventually replace less transmissible strains, similar to what's happening in other jurisdictions. Alberta's top doctor says the number of confirmed cases of a COVID-19 variant that are linked to a large employer is likely to rise. So far, 3 of 26 infections linked to work sites in Alberta's central and northern zones are confirmed to be the Brazilian variant. But Dr. Dina Hinshaw says that's likely to increase as more results come in. Dr. Hinshaw did not reveal who the employer is or to what industry the infected workers belong to. Saskatchewan is set to table its budget today, but Premier Scott Moe has said the novel coronavirus and uncertainty around revenues means the deficit will be around for a while. Mr. Moe promised during last October's general election to eliminate the projected $2 billion deficit by 2024. He has since said meeting that goal is unlikely. After the election, there was a spike in COVID-19 cases throughout the fall and winter, and the province has been offering emergency payments to small businesses hurt by its public health orders. The city of Humboldt is planning a permanent memorial to the victims of the deadly Broncos bus crash. This comes on the 3rd anniversary of the accident, which claimed 16 lives.
We feel so grateful that the members of the Memorials Committee recognize that although people from around the world will always associate Humboldt with the tragedy, there might be only one opportunity to create a lasting tribute. A tribute to stand as a symbol of all the inspirational stories that can be told because of that fateful day.
The preliminary plan from the Broncos Memorial Committee includes a $25 million tribute center. A computer glitch booted a number of people to the back of the online line when they tried to book yurts, cabins, and campsites at some Manitoba provincial parks yesterday. Megan Maxwell, along with relatives and friends, had a total of 11 electronic devices in action trying to book a park reservation. Ms. Maxwell says out of those 11, only 2 finally got through to book a spot. But by then, there was little left and nothing they could use. A provincial government spokesman says the problem was the large number of people who were trying to make reservations with Manitoba parks. Top doctors in 3 Ontario virus hotspots want the province to impose tougher restrictions. Chief medical officers of health for Toronto and Peel Region and Ottawa have written to their provincial counterpart recommending a stay-at-home order. They asked Dr. David Williams to move schools online in regions dealing with significant COVID-19 outbreaks. The Ontario Medical Association is also calling for a stay-at-home order to address the increase in cases. All schools in Peel region are closed to in-person learning for the next 2 weeks. The region, which includes Brampton, Caledon and Mississauga, is one of Ontario's hotspots for COVID-19. Dr. Lawrence Lowe, Peel's Medical Officer of Health, says schools will move to online learning today until at least April 18th. Dr. Lowe says the closure will allow students and staff at least 2 weeks out of schools to break any chains of transmission. A Montreal Area Health Authority is blaming human error after oxygen was cut off to 9 intensive care COVID-19 patients last June 5th, leaving one dead. Health Authority spokesperson Martine Lesage says construction work last spring required part of the hospital's medical gas network to be temporarily shut off, and a misinterpretation of a network map led to oxygen being cut to the COVID-19 intensive care unit. 71-year-old Maurice LeBlanc died, and the 8 others who were affected recovered without serious consequences. A New Brunswick First Nation is grieving after one man died and another is still missing after a fishing boat sank off Cape Breton over the weekend. Councillor Ruth Levy of the Elsie Potong First Nation says deckhand Seth Monahan was confirmed dead after the FV Tighthawk sank near Cheticamp. The captain of the vessel, Craig Sock, is still missing. Ms. Levy says the community held a candlelight vigil for the men on Sunday night. Newfoundland and Labrador are reporting no new cases of COVID-19 over the Easter long weekend. The province hasn't identified a case since last Thursday and currently has 4 active cases. Health officials say the last identified case was a contact of a previously confirmed case. No one is in hospital currently. All right, don't go away. We take a look at top stories from around the world after the break, as the U.S. and Iran are set to begin indirect nuclear talks. Meanwhile, Israel's president has named Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as the party leader, and China holds naval drills in waters near Taiwan. These stories and more news from around the world coming up next on the Forum Daily, so stay tuned, everyone. We'll be right back. Efforts to bring the United States back into the 2015 deal on Iran's nuclear program are to step up a gear as Iran and 5 world powers remaining in the accord meet in Vienna, while the U.S. is due to start indirect talks with Tehran. Senior foreign ministry officials from the countries still in the so-called Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action are meeting today in Vienna. Also due in the Austrian capital is an American delegation headed by Special Envoy Rob Malley. 10 officials have been indicted over Iran's military shoot-down of a Ukrainian passenger plane early last year that killed 176 people. The announcement follows international criticism Iran received last month after it released a final report blaming human error for the launch of 2 surface-to-air missiles against the plane, but named no one responsible for the incident. The Canadian government rejected the report, describing it as incomplete and devoid of hard facts or evidence. Israel's president has named Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as the party leader to try and put together a governing majority. Reuven Rivlin's announcement raised questions over the country's future and Mr. Netanyahu's fate as his corruption trial resumed across town. The charges facing Israel's longest-serving premier posed a choice for the country's president over whether morality should be a factor in who should lead the government. The March 23rd election revolved around whether Mr. Netanyahu is fit to continue serving. China is holding a naval drill involving an aircraft carrier battle group near Taiwan that it says are aimed at safeguarding Chinese sovereignty, which is an apparent reference to Beijing's claim to the self-governed island. China has been steadily increasing its threat to take control of the island military with exercises and incursions into the island's air defense identification zone. The Navy did not say when the exercises began or how long they would last, but it says more such drills will be held in the future. Rescuers in remote eastern Indonesia are digging through the debris of a landslide in search of as many as 21 people. Landslides and flooding from heavy rains from a tropical cyclone have killed at least 128 people across several islands in Indonesia and 27 people in East Timor. Thousands of homes have been damaged and thousands of people have been displaced in the disasters, which could continue to worsen as the storm is expected to continue affecting the region for several days. Authorities in southeastern Nigeria say heavily armed gunmen launched a series of coordinated attacks overnight in Imo State. Authorities said that along with police and military buildings, the gunmen also attacked a prison and that more than 1,800 inmates escaped. There was no immediate claim of responsibility, though a paramilitary wing of a secessionist movement active in the region has been battling government security forces since December. Belgian authorities came out of the Easter long weekend with another record cocaine haul after customs officials at the port of Antwerp seized almost 11 tons of the drug that was discovered amid a cargo of blue leather. Prosecutors said that the shipment brought the total amount of cocaine seized in Belgium over the past 6 weeks to 27.64 tons, worth an estimated $1.63 billion. With thousands of shipping containers reaching Antwerp every day, the Belgian port city is one of Europe's main entry ports for cocaine. New Zealand will open a long-anticipated travel bubble with Australia on April 19th. The start of quarantine-free travel between the neighboring nations comes as a relief to families who have been separated by the coronavirus pandemic, as well as to struggling tourist operators. Both countries have been successful in stamping out the spread of the virus, and New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said health officials believe the risk of the virus being transmitted from Australia is low and that travel is now safe. Steam and lava spurted from a new fissure at a volcano in Iceland that began erupting last month, prompting the evacuation of hundreds of hikers who had come to see the spectacle. The new fissure, first spotted by a sightseeing helicopter, was about 500 meters long and about 1 kilometer from the original eruption site. The Icelandic Department of Emergency Management announced an immediate evacuation of the area. It says there is no imminent danger due to the site's distance from popular hiking paths. A California couple is catching attention for adopting 7 siblings after their parents died in a car accident. Pam and Gary Willis, who already have 5 adult children, adopted the 7 kids, aged between 1 and 12, after years of fostering children. Mrs. Willis said they knew deep inside that this mission was being placed before them. The new adoptive parents say that the kids have given them a second chance at parenting, and they have given the kids a second mom and dad. All right, I'm Nima Rajan, and that'll do it for your look at national and international news for today. Remember, for news on demand, you could always visit our website, thenewsforum.ca, or follow us on our social media handles. We're available on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You could also watch all our news and commentary programming on the News Forum YouTube channel. All right, thanks for joining us on Forum Daily, everyone, and we'll catch you next time.